Hi, it's Gary. Welcome to today's video. Today I've got a fountain pen focus for you. We're going to be focusing on this. This is the Opus 88 Koloro. Really nice eyedropper pen. It's the first eyedropper pen that I've had, and it's another one of those pens. It's always inked up. Join me now down on the mat. We'll take a look at the pen. We'll do some weights and measures. We'll do a writing sample. Then I'll give you my thoughts and scores for this pen. Here we are down on the mat. Here we've got the Opus 88 Koloro. This is called blue on blue, but to me it should be more rightly blue on teal. So what we've got with the body is we've got the blue ebonite, and that alternates with this resin, which is, I would say, it's more like a greeny teal type colour than the blue which the name suggests. We'll look through the body. So at the top, we've got a slight dome here on the top of the cap. We then come down, it tapers out slightly till we get to the clip. The clip, this is quite a tough one for me to move, even under best of circumstances, very, very stiff. But it goes over the loops in my pen case quite nicely, so it's quite secure when it's in there. The clip is just this silver colour. I like the little bit of patterning that there is around the outside, and I like the unusual bit at the bottom here. Very different from a lot of the clips that I have on my other pens. Let's just turn this around. We can see then on this blue ebonite we're still tapering up. Once we get to the resin, it's then the same width. We've got the blue ebonite, and then near the bottom, maybe the bottom centimetre, half a centimetre maybe, we taper down to the bottom of the cap, and then there is a drop off to the body. That drop off to me is noticeable. I can feel it with my finger. Can't really see much, but I'm aware it's there. The body then, we carry on with this teal colour. This is translucent. Unfortunately, you can't really see much up there because there's quite a lot of ink in here at the moment. The body stays the same width until really the bottom of the inside of the cap. Then we have a taper down and we come to the blind cap. I'll just close that blind cap for now. There we go. We've got a silver ring. Then we've got that, again, ebonite blind cap. Why I closed it is just to show you what it's like closed. I'm going to open it again now. There's a shut-off valve in here. You can't see it because of the ink, but it's down near the bottom here. Hopefully it may come through on the camera, but I'm not sure. Let me just tighten that back up. I tend to leave this open when I'm at home, mainly because I'm terrible for forgetting about it, and I keep leaving it closed and then wonder why the pen stops writing. If I'm going out and about, then yes, I will close it then. Let's take the cap off. So we go half, 1, 1.5, 2, 2.5, 3, nearly 3.5 turns to come off. Quite a lot. But on the other hand, I know it's secure. I know should there be a leak, I'm not going to end up with ink all over everything I've got. So we'll take the cap off again to reveal the Opus 88 nib. To me, this looks like a small nib for the pen. It writes nicely, we'll see that shortly, but it does just look a little bit on the short side. It's not overly decorative. We've got a nice border. I think that looks nice. We've got the breather hole, Opus 88, and then we've got a B for broad. So a broad nibbed pen. Does what it says, writes really nicely. The section, to my feel, it feels a little bit on the narrow side. My fingers aren't touching when I'm writing, but they're getting very close. So if I was going to be very picky, I'd like to have seen that just a teeny little bit wider. But that's a personal choice. Section-wise, yeah, we've talked about the width, but the length, again, nice fit. I hold my pen down near the bottom. My fingers fit in there nicely. They're not touching the threads. Comfortable to use. If we look at the size of my hand, just about right. It's not short, but wouldn't take much. If I was maybe to hold it a little bit higher up, that would now be starting to feel a little bit too short for me. Let's pop the cap back on. Going to fetch in some pens for size comparisons. So my first two pens, I've got a Pilot Metropolitan and a Lamy Safari. With that cap open, looks ever so slightly longer than the Safari. Let's close this cap again. As long as I remember to open it before we write, we'll be okay. So with that closed, it's more or less on par with the Safari. Let's take the caps off. Here we are with the caps off. Lengthwise, Safari now ever so slightly longer, and uncapped, it's about the same length as the Pilot Metropolitan. The section is thicker than the Metropolitans, but as I've said earlier, I'd like it just a little bit wider, but that's me being picky. Nibs, the nibs are all very similar size-wise, so I would say this nib is looking like it might be a number 5 size nib. You know, compare it with the Pilot here. This is the Pilot number 5 nib in the Metropolitan. Then we've got that standard Lamy nib there. So a small nibbed pen. Let's take a look at these posted. So I've posted all three pens. Again, it's more or less the same size as the Metropolitan and ever so slightly shorter than we see with the Safari. It does post nicely. You know, it's nice, it's solid. I can tap on the desk, it's not moving. In my hand, it feels all right. I don't normally use pens posted, so this feels back heavy to me. I think if I was using pens posted more often, it might not feel too bad, but it just feels like there's too much weight at the back. I'm going to move these two pens out of the way and fetch in some pens that are roughly the same price. The two pens I've brought in, I've got a Retro 51, this is the Tornado model, and that was $105 Australian dollars. The Opus 88, this was $120, and the TWSBI VAC 700R, this is in the Iris pattern, that also was 120 Australian dollars. So these two pens, the TWSBI and the Opus 88, same price. They're also both made in Taiwan, whereas the Retro 51, that's an American pen. Nib-wise, we can see here, we've got number 6 nib on the TWSBI and the Retro 51, but we've got that smaller nib there, and you can see the difference in nib size. Let's get rid of the caps and look at them unposted. Unposted, in this selection, the Opus 88 is ever so slightly the shortest of the three pens, whereas that TWSBI VAC 700R definitely got the advantage in terms of the length. Let's pop the caps back on. With the caps on, you know, I don't need to explain too much, do I? It's very obvious. Shortest is the Retro 51, but not by much. Then we've got the Opus 88. Finally, we've got that TWSBI. Going to get these out of the way and fetch in the rule of measuring. Hey, we've got the rule of measuring. Let's fetch in the pen. So with the cap on, that comes in at 14.2 centimetres. Uncapped, we're looking at 12.5 centimetres. Posted, that comes in at 16 centimetres. Widths, at its widest point, so up here, the body is 1.4 centimetres. The cap, at its widest point, that's 1.6 centimetres. Then the section, that goes from 1.01 up to 1.21 centimetres. As I say, I do think that section just feels a bit on the narrow side. Let's move the rule out of the way and fetch in the scales of weighing. Here we've got the scales of weighing. So the full pen, remember I've got ink in here, 25 grams. The body, 14 grams. The cap, 11 grams. Not an overly heavy pen, not too light, but it's not something you can really feel it when you're holding it. Let's get rid of the scales and fetch in the notepad of testing. This is the bit I always enjoy. I love the writing samples. And when I'm watching other people's video, it's the writing samples that really interest me. So let's write with this. The paper I'm using is by Ayush. This is an A4 notepad. The paper is 100 GSM. It's a really nice fountain pen friendly paper. So we've got in here, we've got an Opus 88 Koloro. This has got a broad nib and it cost 120 Aussie dollars. The ink is by Pure Pens and it's called John Frost. The actual ink itself is made for Pure Pens by Diamine, and why I chose this is to pick out more of this tealy colour. This is a nice green ink, and I'm not sure if it comes over on here, but it has a really nice red sheen to it. Yeah, I can see that coming through on the ear. Hopefully that comes through on the camera as well. Let's look at our drying times. So we go immediate, 10 seconds, 30 seconds, 1 minute, still smudging quite a bit. Let's go for a 2-minute test. Yep, 2 minutes and we're dry. I'm going to move the mic and write a sentence. Let's look at line variation. So no pressure. I'm going to add some pressure. The tines there definitely spreading quite a bit, giving us a nice wide line. Let's just do a line across and then so we can see here we've got that thinner line going up and we're definitely seeing a little bit of line variation coming down. Flow. So the pen flows nicely, had no issues with hard starts or skipping. See if we can capture some sheen again. And I've got to be honest, might be a little bit there. Yeah, we can see that now coming through. Certainly on the top two lines, the Opus 88 Koloro and Pure Pens, we can see that red coming through. And I can see some here maybe on the start of the G, the R, bit of the M in Grumpy. So that sheen is coming through. This is on 68 GSM Tomoe River, and there we can see, we can see that sheen definitely on that one. I like inks with a bit of sheen because to me it adds character, especially if you can get an ink which is shading as well as sheening. I think it looks so nice. The pen, it writes nice. It's got a little bit of feedback to it. That's one of the things I like. I like to have feedback in my pens. I like the tactile nature. So for me, I enjoy using it. As I said earlier, this pen, since I've got it, it's constantly inked up. And I'd go between this ink, this John Frost, Diamine Garland, and then also Robert Oster Tranquility. They seem to be the three inks that I tend to go for in this pen because I just like the way the colours behave in them. Let's give the pen some scores. We'll fetch it back in so it can be there to get its scores. As you can see, this is what I was saying earlier. I forgot to unscrew that. So I'll unscrew it now. So at least next time I start writing, I don't have to worry. So pen looks. I like this. I like this alternating bands. I think it looks really nice. I actually like the teal with the blue because that means I can use my teal inks where I'm not limited to using blues. I know you don't have to match the inks to the pen colour, but where possible I try to do that. The nib, bit on the short side. The section, bit narrow, but doesn't really detract from the looks, doesn't detract from its use. 3.5 turns though, that's an awful lot to take the cap off, isn't it? For pen looks, I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. Writing experience. As you can see here, I know it's only a simple, small writing experience here. Writes nicely. Unposted, feels nice in my hand. Bit thin, but that doesn't really matter too much. It's not too short. That's the key thing for me. It's comfortable. It's enjoyable. I like writing with this. I like using it. For writing experience, I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. Ink flow. Again, as we can see, we've got a lovely flow of ink. Don't see much in the way of the sheening, and I think on other pens I do see a lot more. I like the fact it's an eyedropper. I think that really works well. Ink flow, gonna give it a 9 out of 10. Value for money. Well, I've got to be honest with you, I think this pen is worth every cent of $120. It looks nice, but it's not overpowering. It writes well. It's got that nice tactile feel that I enjoy when I'm writing. It's comfortable to use. Could do with being slightly wider in the section. I know I keep harping on about that, but doesn't really make a difference. It's still nice. It's still comfortable to use. It's a nice length. I've just got to make sure I remember to open the blind cap. That's my problem. I need to open that, and that's the one thing I do keep forgetting. You know, the flow we saw there is really nice. With this ink, we get this subtle red sheening. And let me see if I can capture that. We can see more of that developing as the ink dries. It is a very wet combo, so one thing I do need to be careful of when I'm using this with my note taking, if I'm going to be doing multiple pages, I need to make sure I can leave enough time for it to dry, or I have some blotting paper which I can use to dry off the notes before I turn the page. So in terms of value for money, I'm going to give this one a 9 out of 10. So that means the total score for the Opus 88 Koloro with Pure Pen's John Frost ink is 8.75 out of 10. And I think that's a well-deserved mark. It is a very nice pen. I hope you've enjoyed today's video. What are your thoughts on the Opus 88 Koloro? Have you got any other Opus 88 models? Please drop a comment down below. I'd love to get an idea of the models you think I may like. It's my only Opus 88 pen, and I'd like to grow that collection. Please hit the thumbs up button every time you like, every time you comment. Just helps with the YouTube algorithm. If you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel so that you can get new videos as I release them. I'll talk to you again soon.